Welcome to the Cross the Line Podcast. My name is Carlos Smith, and today's episode is sponsored by KB's Car Care on 321 North Main Street in Jonesville, South Carolina. They offer hand car wash, vacuum, and clean interior. Full detail is also available. While you wait on your vehicle, customer seating is available as well as a dining area. They're open Tuesday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., so make sure you stop by. Today's episode is also sponsored by Big Ben's Desserts. If you need to satisfy your sweet tooth, this is the place for you. They have a wide variety of desserts, including cakes, ice cream, banana pudding, and my personal favorite, the Oreo cheesecake. They're open Tuesday through Saturday from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. and Sunday from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. and closed on Mondays. So stop by and visit Big Ben's Desserts on 297 Spartanburg Highway in Lyman, South Carolina, where nothing could be sweeter. Today is another very special episode of the Cross the Line Podcast. This is a self-investment tour. We're back on the road, and this time we're in Vegas.
Yeah.
It's been a blessing and enjoying the journey. And we have another very special guest with us today. She's the owner of Cakelyfe By Nattie J, Miss Natalie Collins Fish. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you for welcoming us to your home. This is, like I said, this is a self-investment tour. So this has been a very fun journey out here in Vegas. You know, we got here Sunday night, and we've been here. We'll be here till Wednesday. But it's been very fun. Like I said, we stayed up late the first night.
Right.
Yeah, had a
Vegas
good time.
will get you every
Yeah,
time.
it will. And I'm not even a gambler, but first time, playing blackjack, so I got addicted, and next day, time just started passing by.
That's because they don't have any clocks.
None
No
at
clocks
all.
in the casinos.
And it got so bad to one point I almost forgot to eat. I was like, man, I need to go get something to eat.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. But it's been fun though. I have a good time though. So
Hopefully you left up though.
say what?
You left up?
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a little
I
bit.
just gotta learn when to walk away.
It's always a win if you're even.
Yeah, I believe you. I really do believe you now because
That's the motto.
cause it's like you win a couple of games and then finally it's like you want to keep on going. But you just
Yeah. And then you start betting higher and higher, doubling down, splitting, doing all kinds of stuff. And you're like, what's happening?
I got a story. I'm gonna tell you that story about my friend when we wrap this interview up, because she got me too. She got me one time. And I'm gonna have to tell you about that story. But thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is really fun. Like I said, I do a lot of research, and I knew we were coming to the area, so I wanted to make sure I do my homework and find entrepreneurs who are willing come on and share their story. Because I'm always a fan of we always see the finished product, but I love to hear the backstory of how someone got to where they are. And to me, that's what's so inspiring, because nowadays when you look online, it's just everybody is like a success, but they never really kind of share like their stories of what they went through to get to where they are.
Right.
So I'm very happy to have you on and looking forward to hearing your story. So starting out, for people watching this interview, how would you describe Natalie Collins, aka Miss Nattie J?
Man, I could be described as a lot, but I think I'm known mostly as a unicorn, obviously. I have purple hair, but I'm like a one of a kind. I try to, not focus on what is going on around me and focus on what is going on inside of me personally and put that into my work. So I try to do everything where I keep it unique and just like true to myself, if that makes sense. And always go into it with like a light heart and like keep a positive attitude about everything. It's because I know like if you stay positive, then the end result is always going to be better. If you are angry or feed into the negative comments and stuff that people are always going to put out there, then that is going to reflect your work. So I always try to, brush off all of the negativity and just stay positive and stay bubbly and just focus on all the good going on in my life.
Absolutely. Now, where did you say you were originally from?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Born and raised, yeah.
How was that growing up in Pennsylvania? Like, what was your kind of like your childhood like growing up?
So I was I'm actually a preacher's kid. My dad was a pastor. He started a church before I was even a thought. And we basically did everything for my dad's church. I have 3 older sisters. We lived on I wouldn't say it's a farm, but big piece of property, grew all of our own fruits, vegetables. I grew up riding horses, playing sports, doing the I wouldn't say like redneck stuff of Pennsylvania, but definitely like the outdoorsy stuff of Pennsylvania. Very small town, and just a very homey kind of feeling. My grandmother basically took care of us girls. My mom was a nurse, and my dad was always like with the church. So my grandmother lived with us, and she basically took care of us, taught us how to cook and bake and do everything. So it's kind of where I got into what I do now. But yeah, just a very family oriented kind of upbringing.
You know, when you say that about being a preacher's kid, you know, it's always that stigma that, you know, that the preacher's kid always, you know, kind of stray away from it or do certain things. Did you feel like you had any expectations to kind of like follow up in your father's footsteps, being that he was a preacher and coming up in the church?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I definitely went through like the PK phase where I like rebelled a lot too, which definitely, I feel like a lot of like, oh, you're a preacher's kid, right? But like, I have 3 older sisters, so my oldest sister definitely was like the bad one. She got that out of the way. Then like the 2 in the middle, they definitely are still there and like following in my dad's footsteps. Not necessarily like but they still go to his church and still are like there. And then I'm the one that I was just like, I'm gonna be my own person and I'm gonna just do whatever I want. And that's how I kind of ended up here. But I still am like very close with them. They come out and see me all the time. But I knew I didn't want to be. I mean, I wasn't going to be like an actual, I don't know what you call it. Like, I wouldn't follow like directly.
Like follow up in the ministry. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I'm kind of similar. Well, I'm not a preacher's kid, but, you know, just for me, I'm a middle child. So, you know, I'm the one that kind of went against the grain and kind of like did my own thing, you know, as far as, and what I mean by that, it's kind of like, you know, the kind of traditional, you know, work the 9 to 5 and you know, stay there and just play it safe. You know, for me, I just wanted to do so much more for me. And of course, I mean, I still have a job now, but I'm, you know, doing this tour is kind of me, you know, investing in myself, putting my own money and traveling. I just didn't want to do I know for me, I didn't want to do just the traditional
right.
for me. So I kind of want to create my own opportunity. And it's like, I always make sure I always preach in my interviews. There's nothing wrong with having a 9 to 5. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's nothing wrong with, you know, investing in yourself as well.
Exactly.
For you though, when did you finally decide? You know, I know you say your grandmother kind of helped you with the baking, but when did you find out that was kind of like what you really wanted to do?
So when I was in high school, I was a sports addict. Like I played field hockey. I was on the Junior Olympics for the field as a goalie, and I had some scholarships where I could pursue that. But then I was like, what am I gonna do when I'm done with college? Like field hockey's not like, what am I going to go like to the Olympics? Probably not, right? So I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And then I wanted to possibly go to art school. I loved drawing and doing different stuff like that and being just really creative. So I looked into different art schools in Philly and some other places. And then I was like, you know, maybe I want to make art with food. Like, I feel like that could be a good idea. I mean, I love to bake. My grandmother always taught me to bake. I was baking since I was 3. So I started looking into some culinary schools. And then my mom, when I told her that I wanted to go to culinary school, she was like, you know, baking is just a hobby. It's not a career. She's like, I think that you should, like, rethink that. Because she's a nurse. My 2 sisters are nurses. My other's a teacher. My dad's a pastor. You know, it's like... So, you like, baking pies isn't going to make you a living. And I was like, okay. So then I went to culinary school, and I was determined to prove her wrong the whole way.
Yeah, I saw that on your website. I was going to ask you about it. You said you wanted to prove to your parents that baking wasn't just a hobby. Why do you feel like they kind of view that as, like, just a hobby for some reason?
So I think growing up in a small town, they don't know the food world. You know, like New York City, Vegas, San Francisco, LA, those are all big cities that have a food world. But growing up in such a small town, they don't know any different. You know, it's like, we're going to go out for a really fancy dinner. We're going to go to Red Lobster. Like, that was like always like the place to go. And now I'm like, really, Red Lobster? Like, I wouldn't even touch that, right? You know? But that's all that everybody knows. It's not like a textbook career choice of like being a doctor or a teacher or, you know, a scientist. You know, it's like all those things that you learn in school, what you're supposed to do. Yep. And I always say, like, I don't like being a square. Square's being told what you have to do. You have to stay in the lines, and I'm not like that. So I wanted to find something that I was passionate about, something that I truly loved, and then I knew that I could make it successful. Like they say, like, when you find something that you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Like, I feel like I actually am like the definition of that, because my grandmother, we always had dessert with every meal. She cooked us dinner every single day. We always had dessert, and that was like the love at the end of the meal every day. We always wanted to eat the dessert, you know. So for me, I was like, I love doing it. I love being creative, and I love watching people's reactions to what I make. Like, it's just like watching people be like, oh my gosh, like, even like that's really a cake. Like, for me, that is just so satisfying that I knew, like, I can't do anything else. Like, I've tried to do other things, and I'm like, I can't.
And like like we said, your cakes, they look amazing. Like,
Thanks.
they look like actual, like the cake with the watch. It was, it looked amazing.
Thanks.
And like you were saying, being like from a small town, like we're from the South, and it's kind of like the same mentality for us. You know, just kind of pretty much just playing it safe. You know, just like we're saying, doing the traditional. You know. And even when sometimes when you tell people your dreams, they say, "You sure you want to do that?" And I've had people tell me before in the past, I mean, you work for a great company with great benefits. You should stay there and you can retire. Say put money in your 401k and just retire. But it's like it's so much more to life than just doing the traditional. But for you, how was it? When you told your parents that about baking, did it kind of bother you, you know, with them kind of telling you not to pursue the baking?
I mean, of course, I was, you know, high school kid at that time, and I wanted to do anything that, like, basically they told me I had to do. I wanted to do the opposite because I was an 18-year-old high schooler. But yeah, I mean, I felt like it was more like, oh, they didn't respect my decision of what I wanted to actually do. Or that, like, they didn't think I was going to make it, like, that I had to go into a certain career in order to be successful, which isn't the case, like, whatsoever. I feel like so many people put like careers in a box where it's like, this is the only way to go. Otherwise you're not, you know, you're not going to make it in life. Or like you said, stay with a company that has great benefits or stuff like that. I mean, at the end of the day, that's not what it's all about. I feel like you're not going to go work a job that you absolutely hate just so that you can get insurance. You know, like, I was put in that situation for a while, even working for a big company doing what I did. And now it's like, is it worth it? Is your happiness really worth staying somewhere and doing something for those little things in life that at the end of the day really probably don't matter that much, you know? Like, if you're in a life or death situation and you end up in the hospital with a huge hospital bill, your insurance isn't going to pay for it all anyways, and at the end of the day, you're going to die probably before you pay it off. I mean, so you might as well just live life. Like, life is too short to have, like, those kinds of restrictions on, I mean, ultimately on your happiness, which is what your career should be.
Right. And it's just something about, you know, those mornings. I see a lot of people on social media. They like, man, I hate going to work. These working these 10, 12 hours. Like, this not life. And it's like, if you already had that feeling, you already know the answer that it's not. So do what you want to do. I saw a young lady. I told her, man, just do something you really enjoy doing. Find your passion and, you know, make the effort to, you know, pursue it. Don't just work to just pay bills, because I was doing the same thing and I just got burned out. So I was like, let me go back to what I really wanted to do. And I just invested in all the equipment and everything, and it just kept on going. But if you do it that way, you'll just burn out. Just feel like you're just working to pick up a paycheck. And then the thing you have to realize, if something happened to you at this job, only thing they're gonna do is next man up.
Right.
And they're just gonna find
you're
somebody
just a
to replace
body.
you.
Yep. You're just a body. And I mean, it's sad that that's like kind of like what the world has come to now, that's how people see their job. Like, they're just working just almost like it's just going through the motions, you know? Like, I don't want to teach my son that either. Like, I don't want him to, you know, have to go to get a job and be like, I hate this, I hate to, like, right now he's in kindergarten, but he's I hate going to school, and then we teach him we don't use the word hate like at all. Like you need to go so that you can, you know, grow and develop and stuff like that, and always put like a positive look on it, and not letting him like even focus on the negative, because I feel like today the world is so negative that I'm trying to like figure out how to keep him out of that. But even like having a positive environment, just because I'm happy in my career and doing what I love, like my son sees that, and he will know that he's supposed to do what he loves to do whenever he figures what that is. And I think it's just really important, like the values to have around it, and, you know.
Absolutely. Now growing up, did you have anybody else in your family that kind of exposed you to entrepreneurship, or were you kind of like the first one?
I mean, my dad definitely is an entrepreneur. I mean, he started his own church, and he was always dabbling in other stuff. He always told us, you know, it's always good to have a side hustle. Like, you never should have a reason. Like, nobody should ever tell you that you shouldn't be making money on the side. Like, there's no reason for it. Like, what if something happened to your main job? Well, at least you have something to fall back on. And then what if you're doing 3 different things on the side? Then you have 3 different things that you could fall back on. You should always be making money in different ways. Right. And my dad was really big into the investments also. So he did stuff with the stock market and, you know, all that stuff. So he and all the different LLCs. I swear he has like this business goes with this one and this one, and, you know, whatever. And he was just here recently, and we were talking about it, because he definitely has that entrepreneur mindset. Yeah.
So after high school, did you move right into culinary school, or what was your choice? And where did you go to culinary school?
So I went to the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York, which is like Poughkeepsie, New York. It's a little bit upstate. But yeah, I graduated in 2004, and I went the fall, because the way culinary school works, it's not like they don't start when college starts and end when college. Like, it's they do it in 3-week blocks, so you could start at any time, just depending on when you got in. So I graduated in like June or July or whatever, and then I started in the fall. So November of 2004, I went to right up there and got right into it.
So from culinary school, was it a lot of things that you felt were necessary to go that really helped you? Or did you feel like it was just something you needed to do? Because I see a lot of people, they bake, and they do a really good job. And I don't want to speak for them, put words in their mouth. I don't know if they went to culinary school, but they do a great job. But do you feel like it was very beneficial for culinary school?
You know, I think I would say yes and no. So I feel like from when I went to culinary school to today is completely different. Because now YouTube is insane. That you can basically learn how to do anything on YouTube. But I think that culinary school taught me the structure of being disciplined and being on a schedule. Like, we had it was hands-on classes. We went to class 8 to 10 hours a day. Like, we were actually working in a restaurant instead of like going and sitting in like a college setting where we're just listening to somebody. Like, it was all hands-on. So it definitely got me in the mentality of how to work in a kitchen and be in that environment. But for like my skill level, I would say you can't go to college for that, no matter what kind of college it is. It's the time and effort that you put into it, and actually making it be something that you're going to be successful. So I don't think, like, I know a lot of home bakers out there now that are doing the same thing as me, and they've never gone to culinary school. It's not something that I would say you have to do. I think that it was just something that people expect. When you graduate high school, you go to college, and that's just what you do. So for me now, like, I don't think, like, I'm not going to like encourage my son that he has to go to college and you have to pick a school. Like, if he wants to do something that you don't necessarily need to go to college, I mean, I wish that YouTube would have been the way it is when I graduated high school, crazy. So that I wouldn't have $60,000 in student loans, you know? Like, I mean, so I'm just saying, like, and it's hard for me because my student loans are still, I mean, I'm definitely making a dent in them.
I feel your pain.
They will never go away.
I'm
I swear.
Yeah.
Even my mom was like, when I just won the show, she was like, so you're going to pay off your student loans? And I was like, no, Mom, I'm going to die with those because I feel like I just, but at the end of the, but still, like, so if you go to nursing school and then you get a job as a nurse, your student loans usually get forgiven. But I got a job as an executive pastry chef, and they didn't forgive my loans. They don't care. Nope. Right? It's like, and I get it. Like, I'm not a nurse or a doctor or anything like that. But there's a lot of schools that even teachers and stuff like that. But would I do something differently? Like, if I was in today's age, probably. I probably would have been like, I'm gonna.
It's almost like you really kind of have to go through it to understand. Because my parents, they didn't go to college, but they took out loans for myself and my siblings to go, and I'm thankful for that. But now when I look back, sometimes I'm like, man, I don't even know if I hate to say that, but it's like sometimes I don't even know, was it really worth it.
No, it's a really expensive party.
Mm-hmm. It really is. I mean, we had a good time. We was
right, yeah.
It was a big party, and it's just like, for me, and I when you said it about your son, I was like, I understand where you're coming from, because I don't know if I want to necessarily, if my children want to go, I'm fine with that, but I don't know if I want them to kind of go through the same struggle. I want to full scholarship, go ahead.
Right.
If you don't want to go, that's fine. Figure out what you want to do first. But just the part of, taking out loans and trying to pay it back is like.
Right. I've been out of school since 2006, and I still am like.
Mm-hmm. And I wish, and see, when we talk about school, it gets to me, because I'm like, man, I actually wrote my book. I wrote a book as well, and I was like, I wish it was at least some kind of incentive, like, at least if you graduate, forgive some of the loans, but.
Right, or get a job in your career.
Yep.
Like, if you are going to pursue what you graduated with, like, I have a degree in baking and pastry arts, and then I got a job as an executive pastry chef with, I worked for MGM Resorts International, so I worked MGM, Bellagio, Mirage, I worked for a lot of the casinos all in the same group, but I got nothing, like, they didn't care. It's just I don't even.
Like a piece of paper.
I don't even know if I have a piece of paper. I have no idea where it's even at if I do have one. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's, for me, I was like, I don't think I would do it again. But for me, I did sports broadcasting, so I thought, once I graduate, because I cover professional sports, like over there where we are, closest teams are the Panthers and the Hornets. I've done high school. Everything. So I'm thinking as soon as I graduate, man, I'll be able to get me a job at one of the biggest companies like a ESPN or Fox or Turner Sports or TNT, anything, and it was just rejection. It's like, man, I can't even get a foot in the door.
So that's how, same thing with my career. It's like you graduate and you have I'm a chef, right? Even though you're not. And you still have to start on the bottom. They always say, like, you can't come in and just expect to get a job as a chef. You have to start even dishwasher, or you're like the assistant blah 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 whatever, or like a pastry cook or the assistant to a pastry cook, and you're making like barely any money. You can't pay your bills, you can't pay your student loans because clearly you're not making enough money to even live, but you have to put in the years. Like I always say, like, you have to earn your position. Well, how are you supposed to earn your position if you can't even get in, like, doing what you do? So that's the hardest thing, is, like, how do you get the experience if nobody's actually going to give you a shot? Like, I got lucky that I got into one of the casinos when I was 19 and worked my way up. But at the same time, like, years and years and years of struggling and, chasing titles and doing all that stuff. And for what? Like, what do you get from it? I'm still paying my student loans.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I think they can be kind of like somewhat demoralizing. Like, as a young adult, as soon as you graduate college and you want to find something and you're constantly being rejected, it can be kind of like, it puts you in this down mood. Like, and I feel like for a time I was like, man, why am I constantly being rejected? Am I good enough to hold one of these positions? No, I know I put in the work when I was in college for one of these opportunities, but it was just kind of like the same thing over and over. So I just like, I'm gonna just do my own thing, which I'm kind of in everything. I understand now that everything happens for a reason. So I'm thankful now, because looking back at it now, I don't know if I've been able to grow the way I have, had I just went to one of these companies, because you can kind of fall into that trap of, you work for a major corporation, making good money, you want to just stay here, but then at the same time, even now when I look at ESPN, a lot of those acts that used to be there, they had to do budget cuts. So the people you thought were indispensable, even they lose their jobs. So at the same time, it's like, and I don't want my identity to be attached to a major corporation.
Right.
A lot of times when you get one of those positions, it gets to your head or whatever, and then you kind of forget who you are. And then once they're taken away from you, then what do you have?
Right, and you have nothing to fall back on. At least for as an entrepreneur, we have our business, and if something does happen, you could always start something else, or you have a lot of different options. But when you are with a big company and they say they let you go, then you're like, one, devastated. You're like, what am I supposed to do? By that time, you probably have like a family that you need to take care of and like all other sorts of stuff. So being your own boss and creating that, it's like the lifestyle of having that, then you know that you'll always be able to find something else because you're a go-getter. Like a lot of times, like with the big corporations too, you get stagnant and then you're not willing to go after something else. You won't put yourself out there. Like I don't have like an established bakery yet, but it's in the process. But even for that, it's like I have to take that risk. And the only person it's going to affect is myself. It's not going to affect a big company. It's not going to, any of that stuff. Right. So the only thing that you have to do is make yourself better. And that's why entrepreneurs, successful ones, are successful, because it's only going to affect you and your family, not anybody else. Until you know that you have to make it work. So you just keep going and going and going.
That's what I admire about entrepreneurs. It's kind of like the will to win. It's like you always figure out a way to, even if you don't have all the resources that you need at the time, you just figure out a way to get things done. One way or the other. It's like, I might not have it right now, but I just have faith it's going to work out. And you just got to keep on going, like you said, and you're going to take some lumps along the way. But as long as you keep on going, it's things you're going to learn from. You won't become stagnant and just get comfortable at where you are. You're always like trying to figure out different things that'll work and what may not work, but you just figure out ways to, you have that will to keep on going, and you just figure out a way to get things done.
Yep.
So I know you said after culinary school, I want to ask you, when did you decide to come to Vegas? Was it after you finished culinary school, or what was? Yeah,
when I graduated culinary school, I moved out here to get good experience. Actually, the guy that I was dating, his family was from here, and he moved back here, and they were like, "Yo, yeah, come out here." They worked for the big casinos, and they basically like took me, and I was 19. I sold everything I had back home, my car, everything. I came with a suitcase, and hoping that I could just make it work. I was 19, so I wasn't legally even allowed in the casinos, and they helped me get a job at the Venetian, and just started climbing my way up, and I just kind of never really looked back.
What was your family thought when you told them you were, leaving Pennsylvania and heading over to Vegas? Were they like behind you, or were they kind of skeptical? Like how were they?
I mean, they were definitely skeptical, especially because this is known as like Sin City, it's like a big city. It's like, that's the next city that's going to go down when the world ends. Like, I don't know, all kinds of stuff. Like, that's going to be the city that gets ruined or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, they definitely weren't, I wouldn't say excited. Like, they wanted me to be successful and do what I wanted to do. Like, they definitely supported it. But of course, like, they're sad. I live born and raised. I never left home. Like, I went to school only 3 hours away. I could still go home for dinner if I wanted to. Moving across the country when I was 19, my mom was like, okay, I can't protect you anymore, kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, they've definitely, I feel like, have changed their mindset, though, about Vegas. A lot of people, especially if you've never been to Vegas, you have no idea what it really is, right? So you just think of the Strip and gambling and drinking and strip clubs and all the stuff that
you see on TV.
Yep. You don't think of like sitting in a cute little house 35 minutes away from the Strip, and where I probably go on the Strip never, unless I have to deliver a cake. It's like I stay away from that stuff. But Vegas is great. It's a really awesome city. We have hiking, we have the Hoover Dam, we have all kinds of stuff that people don't associate with Vegas. And that's why I like it, because it's so unique that it's just, I would say, it's like a one of a kind. It's not like your typical city either.
What would you say was the biggest adjustment, coming from the East Coast to coming out here? What was like the biggest adjustment that you had to make when you came out here?
Learning to deal with the people. Like, I feel like everybody's is different. Like East Coast people are different than West Coast people. I don't like to like generalize that, but it is. It's a whole different way of living, and everything is fast paced here. Everybody's like go 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 go. Like if you in Pennsylvania, you can drive the speed limit and it's okay if you're 5 minutes late. But here, it's like everybody's like always going, and just learning the different cultures of people. Like I grew up in such a small, remote little town, and everybody was kind of the same. Like they didn't understand the different cultures and different ways of living, and what's important to some people, and just the values of life out here are so different. Like I've met so many people that are so materialistic, and it's like, for me, I didn't grow up that way, so I had to like learn to understand how people live like that out here, which was a really like almost like a shocker for me. But now I'm used to all of it now.
Yeah, so we're from the South, so the culture it's different from where we are too. But even just California was my first time actually coming to the West Coast, and we came back here back in August. So that was my first time. But like it's like being exposed to so many different cultures, and just like the mindset, and just like entrepreneurship and stuff like that. It's totally different out here on this side. It's just the South is just, I don't know. To me, I always feel like we're kind of a little bit behind everybody else in the South. It's like we need to catch up, because we're just still kind of somewhat stuck in that traditional box of just doing the same things. But
yeah.
But so working at MGM, I saw you work for a very prominent chef, Tom. I hope I'm not butchering his name. Tom Colicchio. Mm-hmm. So how did you end up working with him, and what were some of the things that you kind of learned like working up under him?
That was one of my first restaurant openings when I started working for him. He's very big on the East Coast also. So working for him definitely was kind of like a comfort thing, like knowing that they're very laid back and just easygoing, but also seeing, knowing that where they started to was like the same situation that I'm in, I guess, like, and that anybody can do. I worked for a lot of really big name chefs in the hotels even before Tom Colicchio, so I feel like it was a great learning experience. I think for me more though, like working for big chefs like that, it taught me what not to do when I get to their status. What I don't want to just be, his name is on it. How many times did I work with him? I probably saw him 3 or 4 times. So it's like just their name is slapped on it. They come and make an appearance. They make all the money off of it, and it's like it's very impersonable. And I want whenever I get to that status that I know the people working for me and representing my name. Like I feel like if they're gonna represent me, like I want to know who they are and like a backstory behind them, and like be on a personal level with everybody.
Do you feel? I was gonna ask. Do you feel like as you continue to climb up that ladder of success, but you're already successful, do you feel like an obligation to kind of like pay it forward and kind of help the other young chefs and perfect their craft as they come up?
I do, especially since being on the show. I've had a lot of people reach out to me, and I always try to be as responsive as I can be. I mean, I am very busy, but I took the time to everybody who did message me and ask me questions and try to do stuff like, ask me for what I would do in this situation. I wanted to be there and reach out to them. And a lot of people are like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, I can't believe that you even like responded to me. And I'm like, yeah. And like, if you need help or you need this, like there's some kids here in Vegas that have asked me to like, you know, teach them how to do some things. And I'm going to look for an intern to come and work with me soon. And like, I want people to see that they can do it also, and that they don't need to go to culinary school.
Right.
And to also like that just because I'm successful doesn't mean that I'm like shut off. Like I feel like
Right.
like that I'm like
you still human.
yeah,
like,
I'm still like I'm a
mm-hmm.
good, but like
Right.
you know, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you're taking the time to like deliver my cake. And I'm like, yeah, like if I try to be there for all of my customers and
Mm-hmm.
also people that want knowledge. Like that's what we do. We're all in it together. Like I want other people to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
There's billions of people in the world. Like I can't be the only custom cake artist. So
Right.
like we even have like a little group here in Vegas. Like we support each other. Like I have one of my old employees, you know, I ask her to like do stuff with me. Like eventually she'll probably come back and work for me. But you know, I want to support people doing the same thing also. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's so much to learn in our industry that I don't know everything, but somebody else might have had somebody who wanted a cake like that. So we reach out to each other to really try to feed off of each other. And I think that's really important. It's kind of like the girl gang. Like we have like a whole thing of, you know, not just being like, oh, nope, I'm a cake artist and I can't talk to anybody else because
Mm-hmm.
I want to be the best. I feel like once you get that mentality, it's when you're going to start to go downhill.
Right. I think it's always an obligation for everybody, especially entrepreneurs, but everybody in general, to, you know, pay it forward some type of way, because you have to give back some kind of way. It doesn't have to be in terms of money, just advice or anything. Even if you just giving somebody an opportunity that they never even had, just paying it forward some kind of way. I always feel like it's going to come back in a positive way to you and benefit you. While you were working at MGM, well, I want to talk about that transition from working for some of the most successful chefs to, you know, kind of making that transition. How was that process? How long did you work there, and then how was that process of, you know, making that transition?
So I worked for the MGM company 2010. Nope. 2006, 2000. Like almost 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
I worked for the company itself. I went to different hotels, but I'd say it was like almost 12 years. And then when I branched out and started my own LLC and my own business, I mean, one, it was really scary, but two, it was like I was so caught up in the corporate world. And being like, I didn't even get to do the stuff that I love to do at the end because I was always in chef's meetings and doing, you know, productivity and doing P&Ls and doing this and doing that. And like I didn't get to do what I loved. And when I did leave the company, it was because of a budget cut. And they offered, so I was executive pastry chef, and they offered for me to go down to an assistant in the bake shop, and offered me, you know, X amount of money, even though it was a pay cut, but I'd be the highest paid assistant, this and that. And I wasn't on board with it because I didn't work for the company for so long and get where I was at just to go backwards. That wasn't like in my mindset. And then the whole corporate mindset for them was like they just kept trying to like almost like bribe me with different pieces. And the breaking point for me when I decided to completely walk away was I was actually going through a divorce with my son's dad, and we were actually supposed to be going to court the next day. That I was in this meeting where they were trying to get me to stay as something else. And my boss was like, so we know that you're going through a custody agreement or custody battle with your ex, and you have your son, and we know that you have really great insurance with the company, and if you stay with us, your son will get to keep his insurance. And if you leave, you would have to go on Cobra. And they literally had it all spelled out how much money I would have to pay per month if I went on Cobra, and how much money I was paying with their insurance, which was like $17, and it was like $1,700, and they were like, so your son would get to keep his benefits.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm out, like, literally, like, so, like, for me, like I said earlier, benefits aren't always going to be the reason that you should stay at it. Because, like, that might be, like, that's why they value me. Like, they're going to try to bribe me with my son's insurance. My son was, like, 6 months old. Like, he was
crazy.
Yeah. And I was like, I never want to be that boss either. Like, I want to be, when I do have that many employees, like, look out for everybody. Like, that's shit, like, to me is just like, and honestly, the same thing happened because when I left there, I got a part-time job at Surlatop teaching cooking classes. And then the same thing happened with the pandemic, that they wouldn't keep us on my insurance because of the pandemic, but they said that we have to pay full insurance, and they could only accept a money order or cashier's check, no cards, no nothing. And I was like, I'm not even working because we're in a pandemic, but they wouldn't keep our insurance. It was like a whole thing. And then once again, my son's insurance was going to lapse because they wouldn't, like, I had to pay, I don't know, like, I didn't actually lose my job there. Like, we were still working for the company, but it was in the pandemic. But they were like, oh, sorry, those are the only two forms of payment. Like, I couldn't even, I was like, I don't have a check. Like, I'm not a, it's a 2020. Like, I don't even know. But it's so funny that, like, both big corporations that I've left had to do with my kids' insurance.
It's crazy. You know, a lot of times, you talk to a lot of people when, like, if you tell somebody you thinking about walking away from a major corporation, like, man, what are you, like you said, what are you doing? And still to have, and it can be scary. I know it can definitely be scary, but, you know, just to walk away from it, I know, of course, things happen where they were doing budget cuts. And what I admire about it as well is, like, I always hear an entrepreneur, Ed Mylett, say, life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. So that was kind of like a blessing in disguise in a sense, because now you're able to do what you really want to do, and you don't have any restrictions or have anyone telling you how to do what you really want to do. And I never forget when we were out in California, the lady we interviewed, her name was Miss Judy Townsend. She owns Mannequin Madness. She has a business where she just completely sells and rents mannequins. And, you know, she was selling her mannequins on the side, and she had a 9-to-5 that's working full time. She was working full time, and right at like 9/11, you know, that was when her job kind of like started making cuts as well, and she was one of them. So then she knew, she just went all the way in on the mannequin business, and now it just took off. Over 500 mannequins, built it into a multi-million-dollar business. And she was telling us, you know, that same driveway that you drove, and she would tell us the same driveway that you came through in, that you guys parked in, there was the same driveway that I started in. And just, you know, some things are going to happen, but you just have to keep on pushing forward.
Okay,
I was going to ask, how did the process of Crime Scene Kitchen come about?
So Crime Scene Kitchen, it's interesting. I was actually found on Instagram by a casting company. They had messaged me to see if I would be interested in doing a baking competition that was different than the normal. I didn't know anything about it. I was like, sure. I've been interviewed. I've made it pretty far before with Food Network. Just never made it actually on any of the shows. And this was like, I was like, sure, I'll give it a shot. Why not? Like, what do I got to lose, right? And I started the interview process. They asked me if I knew anybody that I would want to take with me as my assistant that had baking experience. And so Luis, who was on the show with me, he also taught cooking classes with me, but he's one of my best friends. And we started the interview process, and it just kind of went really very fast. So they messaged me in the end of, or like mid-February, and we left in April 2nd. So it was like a real fast. It was like it was a crazy thing with so many different interviews and things that we had to do for it. It was just like a kind of like a whirlwind of how it happened.
So how long did the actual taping part last? Because I think it was about 9 episodes.
It was 9 episodes, yeah.
So how long was it were you guys actually doing the contest?
So we were there 5 weeks.
5 weeks.
Yeah. So we filmed 5 weeks, and if you got eliminated, you could go home. So it was, and I think the process would have been a lot shorter, but due to COVID, and we had 2 separate groups, the way that the show was set up, we did, like, it was spaced out a little bit more. But yeah, 5 weeks total.
Was it stressful, being in the competition, or were you kind of felt like you've had so much experience, you were kind of in your comfort zone, and were you like, I got this, I know I can do it, or was it kind of stressful for you?
I would say I was in my comfort zone. I didn't feel stressed about my skills and being there. I think being on TV was like the different than having the cameras on you all the time, and just the process of all of it, and the wardrobe, and like all of the behind the scenes stuff that you don't see on TV. Mm-hmm. But the actual baking part, that was, like I could do it with my eyes closed. The crime scene kitchen part was the harder part for me. I'm not really good at getting clues. And plus I always want to do what I want to do. And so it was hard for me, especially in the beginning of the competition, because you'd have to try to figure out what's underneath the box. Right? Did you watch the show?
Oh, I didn't get a chance to watch it.
Okay. So basically, you go into the crime scene, you see different clues, and you have to figure out what was made in the kitchen. Okay. And then at the end, so you don't know what any of the other teams made either. So you're going in just solely thinking of what you believe was made in the kitchen, and the same thing for the other teams, but you have no idea what anybody's making.
So everybody's making something different, though?
If they choose, or we could all be making the same thing, we don't know. So when you go up to judging, basically is the first time that you see what anybody else is making. So you walk up. So everybody's thinking like how they interpreted what was made in the kitchen. But then there was a box, they call it the Confectionator 3000. And underneath that box, they'll reveal what the mystery dessert actually was. And whoever got the closest to it would win. But if everybody made the same thing, then they would pick the best one kind of thing. But for me, I'm like an over the top. I do all my crazy, all my stuff. So, for example, the first one, it was the showpiece round, which is like the second round. It was a naked carrot cake, and it had these little tiny vegetables on it. And like we knew that it was like, we saw that, but I was like, that's not a showpiece. I have to like do what I do. So I did like an actual like wood bushel, and I made like real life vegetables out of chocolate, and it looked like this whole thing that didn't look like a cake, but it was. And like, even though ours technically was the best, it wasn't what was underneath the box, because the box was a naked cake and somebody else made the more similar, even though ours was better. So for me, it was really hard to like process that whole thing, because I was like, I wanted to do what I do, and I'm like, how am I gonna win if that's what they want me to do? Because that's not the stuff that I do. But then I figured out how to play the game, and it got easier as we went on, I guess you could say. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely, I feel like that was like the more stressful part, that I couldn't be me. Right. Like that was hard for me.
Do you feel like did they focus more on presentation, or the actual taste of what you baked?
So presentation was definitely like the main focus, I would say, because they wanted it to like match. But if it tasted like, so let's say, say only one person made the dessert and it matched, even though it tasted terrible, they still made the right one. So it was like, ugh. But if everybody got it wrong, then whoever made the best tasting dessert would win, I guess.
I would think like you'd be like the anticipation and the nerves would build up more and more the closer you get to like down to I think it was down to the bottom of the last three.
So there was 4 in the finale, and then the first round they eliminated a team. So in the end there was 3.
So were you nervous when it got down to finally making that decision of who would win? Like,
I was, because the behind the scenes that you don't see, our cake. So we had it. They changed the rules at the end because it was the finale. So we had to make a 3-tier cake, and we just had we went to the crime scene, but it had to include ingredients that we saw in there, and it was for one of the judges' birthdays, and so we had certain things that we had to incorporate into that cake, but there was not an exact replica of what was going to be under there. Like, we were allowed to use our freedom, which was great. So I was like, oh, we definitely are going to win this. Like, it's fine. But then when we did make it, and then you don't see how long from the time we finish to the time we go to judging, and your cake sits out, and if it doesn't, you know, have time to set in the fridge or do whatever, the appearance can be off. But then when you have to take it to judging table, even though it was 6 hours ago from when you finished, it could look completely different by the time you go back. So I literally had like a major meltdown when I came back, and I was like, so I'm going to throw this in the garbage. Like, I literally, like, obviously none of this is on TV, but for me, I was like, I told my partner, I was like, just so you know, we didn't win, because our cake is like leaning like a ½ inch now, and it was starting to buckle because it was sitting out for 6 hours, and we had just baked it. Like, it was just made. Normally a cake like that would take like 3 days. Like, you bake the cake 24 hours in advance, and then you let it sit so that like the flour can finish hydrating, and there's like a whole process. Cake making isn't just like cooking a steak.
Yeah, they don't show it on TV. No, they don't show it on TV. Like, they'll show you baking, and then they'll show you like the finished product. They don't show like all the time that goes in between it.
And like the stuff, like normally, like if I would make that 3-tier cake, like literally I would start it 3 days in advance, because it has to set properly in order to do certain things to it for it to be stable. But we had 4 hours to do start to finish, and then it sat for 6 hours before it even got judged. So it's like, and that was a hard thing for me. I'm like, this is my name on TV. Like, I was like, I don't want to put up a product that I'm like not proud of, you know. So that was like really stressful for me. So I definitely, when we were standing up there waiting for the results, I was like, there's no way that we won, because my cake's leaning a ½ inch. Like, I don't. But.
And then you guys you won the contest. How was after you win, like, do they tell you not to say anything, or because you know it's a long process, like you have to watch week by week to tune in, like you guys clearly know that you won, but is it like, do they tell you not to tell family or anybody, or how was that after?
Yeah, so we were told that we could tell like immediate family. Like, obviously, like, I'm going to come home, my husband's going to know, you know,
right.
Stuff like that. But I didn't even tell my son, because I was afraid he was going to, like, because he's 5. So, yeah, we couldn't tell anybody until the finale aired. So, luckily, ours wasn't a long time. We finished filming, like, May 5th we came home.
Was it out here in Vegas, or you had
No, we were in California, in Glendale.
Okay.
So, we finished filming May 5th, and then this finale was July 21st. So we had a little bit of time that we had to wait till we could tell anybody. But there was like a few people that knew. My mom knew. She was out there with me, because I actually had a miscarriage on the show. That's okay. Which is another whole crazy thing of being on TV.
Did they talk about it on TV, or? Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, we kept it completely.
Okay.
None of the other contestants or anybody knew. We kept it completely. I didn't want it to be like a thing where people thought that I was only staying, like, I don't know. Because of it, you know.
Because, you know, sometimes storylines do sell TV shows and stuff like that.
Yeah, so no, we kept it completely, like, only like the main, like the people who had to know knew, but nobody else knew. But it was there's an episode where I'm not at judging. I'm missing from judging, and that's how I was. Okay. Episode 7. You'll know if you watch it.
Do you still have like relationships with any of the contestants that were on there? Do you still keep in touch with some of those people?
I still, like, we're all on Instagram. We have like a group chat on Instagram. I didn't really get to know the other group unless they merged with us. But like the couple that went, 3 teams that went home from the other group before we merged, I never got to even like meet them. But the other ones we have like a group chat, and we all follow each other on Facebook and send encouraging words to each other. Like, we're all supportive of each other, and it's good. It's fun. Still a lot of the producers and stuff too. I still talk to actually the barking dog's one of the producers.
Oh, okay.
So.
And after you win and everybody finds out that you won, like, how, I know probably getting phone calls, text messages. Has anything like life changed drastically anyway since you won the contest, or are you still kind of like doing the same thing? I'm
still doing the same thing. I try, you know, I didn't want it to go to my head where I was like, oh, I won, so now I can like take off time or whatever. I literally came back and I was like right back to the grind. I think if anything, it helped my followings on Instagram, which I was hoping it would actually help me some more, but I don't think that it wasn't like it didn't like blow up or anything. I just kind of added it to my resume,
right.
And if that makes sense.
And it still keeps you humble, though. Like you said, that's like the most important thing. Like sometimes a lot of people get those big accolades, kind of goes to their head and everything. So at least it still kept you humble and kept you grounded.
That's like a lot of people are like, oh, you're famous. I'm like, so I'm not. Like just because I was on TV, and it doesn't mean that I'm famous. Some people recognize me here and there, but not like, anything crazy. I get a lot of people make orders. Like it's definitely helped my business for sure. Like they've, we watched you on Crime Scene Kitchen and we absolutely love you and we want you to, whatever, which is fantastic. Like I've definitely picked up business. It's been great for my brand. But I was already busy before. So, yes, it 100% helped me, but I try to not forget, but like put it in the back of my mind, because I don't ever want to be that person like, oh, I won Crime Scene Kitchen and like walk around with like like I'm hot shit, because that's not who I am, right. And I try to stay like as humble as possible.
Just a few more questions and we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
What would you say is next for you? You won the contest. You work for successful companies. What would you say is like next in line? And I know goals change as you continue to accomplish things, but what would you say is like kind of like next for you that you want to accomplish?
So I'm definitely gonna open a storefront, and I want to make a brand that's basically, I want to build my empire where I'm like the next. Like, if you come to Vegas, like, you have to go to my bake shop. You know what I mean? Like, you have to come visit. You have to come get something from me. Not necessarily, like, some of the other ones. Like, I don't ever want to sell out. I know there's a lot of bakeries that do. Like, once you're on TV, some of those chefs sell out. And I don't ever want to get to that point. But I want to make a name for myself that people will remember for the right reasons, if that makes sense.
What advice would you give to the younger Natalie, looking back on your journey? Like, what advice would you give yourself?
To not be so stubborn. I think that I was really stubborn in the beginning, and I had to learn a lot of really hard lessons with, even when I moved out here and working for the big companies and chasing the titles and stuff like that. I didn't always put things into priority of what I should have put into priority, and it was all about like, well, I have to work nonstop because I want to be the executive pastry chef, but then I let my marriage fall apart, and stuff like that. It's like you don't make some of the right choices because you have the goal of what you should be doing, and not what you should be doing to make your life better. You know what I mean? So I think like for me, like I was very stubborn. Like I had that mindset, like I'm only gonna make it if I become like the executive pastry chef of all of MGM Resorts International. Well, then I'd be working 15-hour days. I'd be working 7 days a week. I would be, not putting things first, and it was all for what? I walked away from the company anyways, but you have to, like, I definitely, when I was young, it was just like, well, I want to be this, but I want to be this title, but I'm still working for somebody else who's making all the money, and I'm not really making any money, and I'm not at home with my family, and I'm not, it's not the priorities, and I don't ever want to do that again, because I want to be involved with my son's life. I want to be able to go to every single one of his basketball games because he thinks he's going to be an NBA player. And I don't ever want to miss stuff like that because all I do is focus on on that.
I completely understand. Cause sometimes when you're going after your dreams, it can consume you and you just like grind. And I've had those things, traveling is tough tough for me as well. I have 3 children. I have a son and two daughters. And, being away from them gets tough. And I know they miss me. It's like they don't really understand it now because they're young. But in the end, as they get older, they'll understand. But it's like sometimes when you trying to accomplish your dreams and have these visions, like you miss a lot of time. But you still got to figure. Even now, like I was on the phone with my daughter yesterday in the room, and she called me and she said, "Daddy, make sure you put down on your notes." And I actually typed it down for her too. She said, "Make sure you know Friday. Make sure you here Friday at 8:00 in the morning because we're going to the pumpkin patch for school." So I told her, "Okay, I'm gonna make sure I put it in my notes." And it's those type of things like that. Like you never get that time back.
Right.
And that's one of the things. Like I posted before. Like sometimes I struggle kind of feeling that guilt of, man, I'm going after what I want to do, but man, I'm missing time with my babies because I know they, honestly, they want me to be happy and be successful. At the same time, they really just care about being with daddy.
Right.
At the end of the day, and sometimes when you're going after your goals, it's kind of like you miss those special moments in life. So that's why I say I completely understand where you're coming from, and just kind of like trying to. I don't know if it's ever a such thing as like balance. It's like you just have to try to make the best of everything that you can.
Yeah.
Because there's so much that you want to give to your family, and at the same time, you have to pursue your goals if you want to take care of your family as well.
It's like a catch-22.
Yeah, absolutely. My final 2 questions though before we get out of here. If you have any advice for people watching this who want to pursue their dreams, and maybe not even become an entrepreneur, but they just want to pursue their dreams and be happy, what advice would you give them?
I would say that don't stop the hustle, but make sure that you focus on the priorities. Like, you always have to hustle, and you won't get anywhere without hustling, but make sure that you are doing it where you're not forgetting, don't leave out the important part of life, like make sure that you focus on the right stuff. I don't know. Like you always got to grind, but grind for the right reason. I would say that's like, remember what you're doing it for.
Absolutely. Remember your why.
Remember your why.
My final question, I ask everybody this while we've been on the road, it's the Cross the Line podcast self-investment tour. So my final question is, what does self-investment mean to you?
Self-investment, man, it can be a lot. I would say it's investing in like your actual soul. Not necessarily money. Money you can always make more, but if you don't invest in your actual self and what makes you happy, then you're never going to be successful.
Absolutely. Ms. Natalie, I want to thank you again for taking the time to sit with us. I'm glad I found you. I'm glad we can hear your story. This has really been fun. We're out here in Vegas. It's forcing me to step out of my comfort zone because for the longest, I never even seen myself doing this, like traveling, and then it just was like, man, once I started having that exposure, like, man, I'm thankful that I'm able to, get out of my comfort zone and travel all over and just interview some of the most brilliant minds and entrepreneurs because, like I said, everybody has a story of what they came from or what they became. And a lot of times they get lost in the shuffle, and a lot of times the only thing you hear is just like this person just being successful, but you never hear those stories. And for me, it's always inspiring. Especially even your story as well, adding on to it, is just, the things that you went through and then how you overcome them and how you still going. It's inspiring just to hear those stories. So I really want to thank you for taking the time to sit with us.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Absolutely. Before we get out of here, can you please tell everyone how to find you on social media?
Sure. My Instagram handle is Cakelyfe with a Y by Nattie J. So Cakelyfe. We'll do this. Cakelyfe. It's my life is with a Y, and then my website's the same thing. So cakelyfebynattieJ.com.
And are you able to, let's say someone watches the interview, and we're all the way in South Carolina. Do you have a way yet of possibly like if they want to order a cake just to support you, anything, is it a way that they can order it and it gets shipped there? Or
so we do. We can ship cake pops, which is basically like just a small version. I haven't gotten to the shipping part of custom cakes because it's uber expensive and very complicated. But eventually I will be able to ship custom cakes too. It's my goal.
Absolutely. We want to thank you again. We definitely look forward to you. Also, I have a gift for you. It's in my bag as well.
Oh,
like I told you earlier, I wrote my very first book as well. And actually, it's titled "F School Life is Your Best Teacher." It's on the front of the screen right here as well. It's just a picture of myself and my son, and he's holding my college degree.
Aww.
So it's like when you look at it, you're like, why is he saying F school when he went and got a degree? But it's kind of me just looking at my younger self, just telling me what I would do differently, knowing what I know now. Because I was, like I said, I was kind of going down that traditional path as well. So it's when you read it, it's totally different from what you may think just looking at the title. But I wanted to bring you that gift because you invited us to your home. So I really appreciate you again.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So hopefully everyone enjoyed this interview. Please go support Miss Natalie, Cakelyfe by Nattie J. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Cross the Line Podcast, Self-Investment Tour. So until next time, keep chasing your dreams. Thank you for listening.
I am Natalie Collins, the owner of Cakelyfe by Nattie J, and you are tuning in to Cross the Line Podcast.